Have you ever felt an inexplicable fear in the middle of nowhere? That's exactly what happened to my friend and I one winter in Idaho. Tucked away in the heart of Idaho's wilderness, nestled among the trees and the undisturbed quiet, stood a small cabin. It was a place of refuge, an escape from the bustling rhythm of city life, and an opportunity to become one with nature. The nearest town was a good 50 miles away, leaving only the whispers of the wind and the occasional rustle of wildlife to break the silence. The closest sign of civilization, an old logging road, lay abandoned, 2 miles off in the distance. In the embrace of this isolation, my friend and I, two urban dwellers in our 30s, sought refuge. We reveled in the solitude, the camaraderie, the disconnection from the rest of the world. The cabin, with its aged wooden walls and cozy bunks, became our playground. We spent our days exploring the wilderness and our nights huddled in the cabin, sharing stories and laughter under the soft glow of a lantern. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the darkness of the Idaho wilderness would creep in, slowly swallowing the cabin. The vibrant hues of the setting sun were replaced by the inky black of night, punctuated only by the twinkling stars peeking through the gaps in the treetops. The once lively cabin fell silent, the laughter and conversation of the day giving way to the soft sounds of the night. The tranquility of the wilderness, so serene during the day, took on a different tone in the darkness. The silence seemed to press in on the cabin, wrapping us in a blanket of unease. The isolation, once a welcome retreat, now felt heavy, a stark reminder of our distance from the rest of the world. As we prepared for bed, the silence was broken by a sound that sent chills down our spines. In the pitch-black night, the scraping sound against the cabin door was unmistakable. The night was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. But instead, it was this eerie sound that sliced through the silence, causing the hairs on the back of our necks to stand on edge. My friend and I exchanged worried glances, our hearts pounding in our chests like wild drums. We tried to laugh it off, tried to convince ourselves it was just an animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel. Or perhaps it was the wind playing tricks with the old wooden door. Yes, that had to be it, just the wind. But the sound persisted, slowly morphing from a scraping to a distinct knocking. It wasn't the random, aimless knocking of an animal or the rhythmic, continuous knocking of the wind. No, this was deliberate, calculated. Knock, pause, knock, pause. As if someone or something was trying to get our attention. Our laughter died in our throats, replaced by a rising tide of fear. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too isolated. The wilderness outside, once a playground for our adventures, now seemed like an unending expanse of darkness, hiding untold dangers. We lay there, huddled in our bunks, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. With each knock, the fear escalated, wrapping its cold, clammy fingers around our hearts. We whispered reassurances to each other, our voices barely audible. "It's just a prank," we said. "Maybe it's just a lost hiker," we reasoned. But deep down, we knew. We knew that it was neither a prank nor a hiker. We were alone in the wilderness, miles away from the nearest town, miles away from the nearest road. Who would be knocking at our door in the dead of the night? The knocking persisted, each thud echoing in the silent wilderness, filling us with a fear we had never known before. The night was no longer quiet. It was alive with the sound of our fear, a fear that was as real and as tangible as the knocking on our cabin door. The silence that followed the knocking was even more frightening. An eerie stillness had settled over the cabin. It was as if the entire wilderness, the rustling trees, the chirping crickets, even the wind itself, had collectively held its breath, waiting for what might come next. We lay there, my friend and I, in our separate bunks, frozen by a terror so profound that it seemed to have seeped into our very bones. Our eyes were riveted on the cabin door, the only barrier between us and the unknown entity that lurked outside in the darkness. We didn't dare to move. We didn't dare to speak. Even our breaths were shallow, barely audible, as if we were afraid that the slightest sound might invite the unwelcome visitor to try the door again. Time seemed to have lost all meaning as we lay there in the oppressive darkness. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour like an eternity. The blackness of the cabin seemed to close in on us, pressing against our eyes, our skin, our lungs. It was a tangible thing, this darkness, heavy with the weight of our fear and anticipation. The night stretched on, an endless expanse of uncertainty. Our minds raced, conjuring up every possible explanation, every potential threat. Was it a wandering bear, curious about the light in the cabin? A lost hiker seeking shelter from the cold? Or was it something far more sinister, something that didn't belong in the natural world? With each passing moment, our terror grew. It was a living thing, a beast that fed on the silence, the darkness, the unknown. It gnawed at our sanity, eroding our rational thoughts, replacing them with images of shadows and monsters and nameless dread. As daylight broke, we finally mustered the courage to open the door and step outside. The world that greeted us was the same as it had been the day before, untouched by the horrors of the night. But we were changed, forever marked by the silent terror that had visited us in the darkness. As we stepped outside, the wilderness seemed to hold its breath. The morning was eerily calm, as if the world itself was trying to forget the terror of the previous night. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting long, menacing shadows that danced in the early morning breeze. The untouched blanket of snow around the cabin glistened peacefully, a stark contrast to the fear that was still heavy in our hearts. We surveyed the area around the cabin, our breath misting in the frigid air. We were searching for any sign, any hint of our midnight visitor. But the snow was undisturbed. Not a single footprint marred its pristine surface. No tracks leading to the cabin, and none leading away. It was as if the world had swallowed up any trace of the intruder. We exchanged puzzled glances, our minds racing to make sense of the situation. The fear of the unknown had morphed into a deep-seated dread, a dread that was amplified by the silence of the wilderness around us, by the absence of any evidence, any explanation for what had transpired. The cabin stood there, silent and ominous, a stark reminder of the terror that had gripped us. We circled it, inspecting every inch, every nook and cranny, desperately looking for a logical explanation, but there was none. The door was untouched, the wood unmarred. The only testament to the previous night's horror was our own recollection, our own fear. We were left with an unsettling feeling, an unease that seemed to seep into our bones. The very air around us felt charged, the silence almost deafening. We were alone in this vast wilderness, sharing our terror with nothing but the wind and the trees. To this day, we have no explanation for the knocking that night. Who or what was knocking on our cabin door in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere? This question has lingered in our minds, echoing through the years, its resonance undiminished by time. We were two grown men in the prime of our lives, reduced to huddled, silent figures in the darkness by an unseen visitor. The cabin, our sanctuary nestled in the Idaho wilderness, had become a stage for a chilling, nocturnal drama. The fear was palpable, a third presence in the room, as tangible as the cold night air seeping through the cabin's cracks. The knocking, that insistent, relentless knocking, was the only communication from our uninvited guest. There were no voices, no demands, no explanations. Just the rhythmic, haunting knock that seemed to reverberate through the very marrow of our bones. The morning light revealed no clues. There were no footprints, no signs of disturbance, no indication of any human or animal presence. Just the silent cabin, standing stoic against the wilderness, its wooden door bearing mute testimony to the terror of the previous night. In the stark light of day, the fear receded, but the mystery remained. Who or what had been at our door? Was it a prankster, a lost traveler, a wild animal, or something more sinister? Could it have been a figment of our overactive imaginations, a shared hallucination born of isolation and darkness? Or was it a manifestation of the wilderness itself, an echo of the untamed, unpredictable force that surrounded us? These unanswered questions have haunted us, casting a long, eerie shadow over our memory of that night. The fear of the unknown, the dread of the unseen, has imprinted itself on our minds, transforming a simple, unexplained event into a chilling, unsolved mystery. We may never know the truth, but the memory of that night haunts us still, leaving us to wonder, what if the knocking starts again? Dive into the abyss of the dark and mysterious, a realm teeming with gruesome goodies designed to make your stomach churn and toes curl. The Amazon affiliate link, waiting in the description, is your ticket to this world. Don't hesitate, explore the unexplored. Who knows, you might just find your new obsession. And so, our tale of the Campfire Horrors comes to an end. Until next time, sleep tight. Before we part ways, dear viewers, remember to stay vigilant. The Campfire Horrors may have been extinguished for now, but the embers of the unknown always remain. As you lay down to sleep tonight, don't forget the lessons from our tale. Safety is but a fleeting moment in a world of unseen. So if you've enjoyed this journey into the abyss, don't forget to ring that bell and smash that like button. Do it before the thing under your bed decides to pay you a visit. Oh, and keep those night lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the dark. Thank you for embarking on this terrifying adventure with us, until our paths cross again in another tale of the unknown. Goodbye and sweet dreams, if you can.